This is not one of our regular videos that show restored historic footage of the way the world was nearly a century ago. Instead, it is a report of the shocking experience we had while visiting the Harz National Park in Germany now 2 weeks ago. We wish to share the devastating effects of climate change on the spruce tree forests in the Harz that we witnessed from a front row seat. The Harz area comprises a circa 4,000 square kilometer medium height mountainous area approximately in the middle of Germany. Its highest peak is the Brocken at an altitude of 1142 meters. Historically, the Harz has been a mining area for many centuries, as well as in more recent years a source of timber. Since the Second World War it has been covered with woodland, comprising for about 90% of planted spruce trees. Tourism also forms an important source of income for the residents in the Harz. Its, until recent, spectacularly beautiful scenery and beautiful towns with half-timbered houses annually attracts many German and foreign visitors. Until the German unification in 1990, the Harz was divided between East and West Germany. Traces of these fortified borders can still be found there. We travelled from the Netherlands to the Harz via the A2 motorway that runs from Osnabrück via Hanover to Berlin. After Hanover we turned southwest to visit the splendid town of Goslar in Lower Saxony, which is just outside the national park on the northwestern slopes of its mountains. The old town of Goslar and the mines of Wernigerode are UNESCO World Heritage Sites. Its marketplace, characteristic houses and the Kaiserpfalz are among the main attractions. After leaving Goslar and travelling southeast towards our hotel in Sorge, soon after passing Braunlage, we started to realise that something terrible was going on in the Harz. After seeing our first hill with almost no trees, but just hundreds of tree stumps, we thought it could be an area where the trees had been harvested for the wood. But as we continued our journey, more and more similar scenes were observed, as well as huge areas with thousands of dead spruce trees and huge piles of logs. After arriving at our splendid hotel in Sorge, we made a walk and started to talk with one of the local residents. In our best attempt in German to open the conversation with "So viel tote Bäume," we got an elaborate explanation of what is going on. Apparently the spruce trees are now dying at an alarming rate because of a bark beetle, the so-called Bockenkäfer, also called the Buchdrucker in German and Letterzetterkäfer in Dutch. The reason for these names is that these small, only about 5 mm long beetles destroy the sap channels between the bark and the trunk of the spruce trees, causing them to die. The pattern that the Bockenkäfers make while digging canals in the bark for food and to lay their many eggs resembles an open book, which explains the aforementioned colloquial names. The local lady told us that usually 90% of the beetles die during winter. But in recent years the winters in the Harz have been so mild that most beetles survive. Furthermore, because of drought, the trees don't produce enough resin that hold the beetles from eating their way into the bark. Each Bockenkäfer can lay up to 100,000 eggs, which explains their extremely rapid expansion in the whole Harz region. She pointed out that until only about 5 years ago, the hill opposite our hotel was one green mass of thousands of spruce trees, whereas now only a few sad specimens remain, blowing unprotected in the wind. That first night we went to bed with a very sad feeling. The next day we went on a day trip to Wernigerode. On the way we passed many more totally devastated hillsides, where either the trees had been chopped down, or clumps of tall thin trees were still standing, or simply fallen over. Wernigerode itself is a beautiful town, with the same typical East German wood and stone houses, in particular among the Breitestraße. Unlike Goslar, it has a spectacular market square, including a fine town hall with a timber facade from 1498. Of course, a visit to Wernigerode's wonderful castle was also on our agenda. The castle offers great views over the entire town. On our way back to the hotel at Sorge, we tried to ignore the tree devastation and to focus on the remaining green patches. Surprisingly enough, areas with deciduous trees show no sign of decay. Unfortunately, only about 10% of the Harz is covered by such trees. The 90% majority comprises spruce trees. Somewhat unaware of the shock that was about to happen, we set about our journey the next day towards the Brocken mountain. To reach this 1142 meter high mountain, we went to Wernigerode station to board a wonderful steam train. The Harz Transport Company runs a daily service with about a dozen steam trains. This very popular means of transportation daily attracts thousands of tourists, thus the trains are often very crowded, which was also the case when we set out on this journey. With an outside temperature of 35 degrees centigrade and the obligation to wear face masks at all time, we did wonder whether this journey was the right choice for us. As the steam locomotive huffed and puffed to pull the dozens of carriages filled with tourists via a bendy track up the mountain, we started to witness an ever-expanding panorama of devastation. Up till the train's first stop at Dreiannenhöhe, the situation seemed not so bad. But from about halfway up our 1.5 hour journey, it became very clear what was going on. About 98% of the hundreds of thousands of spruce trees were now dead, either still standing, pulled or fallen over and or chopped down. What until very recent had been a luscious green forest was now the scene like an earthquake. We reached the top of the Brocken mountain almost in shock. The Brocken itself was very interesting. Dating from the Second World War, this has been a radar station. The Brocken is a place of extreme weather conditions. About 80% of the time it is engulfed by mist and the average temperature is only about 8 degrees centigrade. We were very lucky because it was a clear day with views for over 100 kilometers. Trying to find a seat in the overcrowded and oversold train on our way back was a real challenge. This time we sat on the other side of the train, which provided an even better view of the catastrophe that is taking place on the slopes and valleys. Please watch these images and then ask yourself why there are still people who are questioning climate change and global warming. One of the things that struck us was the sheer optimism with which these shocking images are being approached. For example, in the train there was an announcement which translated came down to: "You obviously have noticed the many dead trees. Currently the Harz is undergoing a phase of profound change. The forest may seem dead, but in fact it is very much alive. In only a few years' time the Harz will be green again. A new, more diverse forest will emerge from the dead trees, which will serve as the food source for the growth of a large variety of many deciduous trees." After returning from our Brocken adventure, we found the need to explore the situation in more detail online. The optimism that we heard in the train is apparently shared on many German and other websites. If you don't want to hear our observations and conclusions, nor watch some more great images of the Harz, then please stop watching here, because our neutral report on the situation ends here. We found it remarkable that statements were made like that the spruce trees have never been indigenous to the Harz, but were planted by man, and that now all these trees have entered their final life cycle phase at the same moment. Clearly that is not the case, as the trees were planted, harvested and replanted over many decades. What to our opinion has happened is that climate change has caused an instant blow to nature, which has exponentially peaked over a very short period of about only 5 years. The sentiment that everything will be okay as long as we let nature take its course, helped a little by man by planting a more diverse range of vegetation, raises eyebrows. First of all, it is doubtful whether new spruce trees won't undergo the same fate as the current destroyed forest. Spruce trees grow very fast at a rate of 25 centimeters a year. Deciduous trees grow much slower. Even a child can understand that it will take a generation, 20 to 30 years, to regrow the forest. In the meantime, the still small new vegetation will have negligible impact on the ability to store CO2, the greenhouse gas that is at the source of global warming. One should realize that the Harz is not the only region in Europe where massive extinction of spruce trees is occurring. It is being reported from all over Europe. About 25% of Germany alone is covered by forests, mainly consisting of huge numbers of spruce trees. Some may contest the statement that the Harz is dying. However, unquestionably the Harz as we know it is dead. Whether it can and will be renewed and rejuvenated, only time will tell. These prospects don't look very good. Isn't it about time that governments act against the real effects of climate change? Apparently Germany is going to spend only 800 million euros to combat the forest destruction. Mere peanuts. In the Netherlands the government is spending 25 billion euros, yes you heard it right, to fight a largely phantom idea that nature is being negatively affected by nitrogen emissions, mainly caused by over-farming. This, many would say ludicrous plan, is costing 7,000 euros for each Dutch household. Currently Dutch farmers are violently revolting against the government that seems to have eye blinkers on and is refusing to properly take scientific studies into account. Instead, it is blindly following a High Court order to do something about nitrogen emissions, under the assumption that this gas is causing impoverishment of some nature areas. This court order has resulted in a dreadful plan to buy out farmers, abolish megastables and in fact ruin the worldwide renowned Dutch agricultural sector. If only governments would listen and focus their attention and spending on the real CO2 greenhouse problems. Just to sum up that we are not climate activists, yet. But the situation in the Harz that we observed with our own eyes certainly give food for thought and deep concern about the future of our vulnerable planet. Thanks for watching and listening, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel.